Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to kickstart a series of videos that are going to be covering the wonderful world of artificial intelligence. And our very first topic is going to be how do you unlock AI's full potential using the art of prompt engineering. So in the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen an explosion in all these platforms. We have Facebook's Llama, we have ChatGPT, we have Claude, we have Perplexity. All of these platforms are extremely powerful, but how you communicate with them has a major impact in the output that you get out of them, right? And this is what we call prompt engineering. So prompt engineering is basically crafting instructions for AI. Yeah, it's a process of you're designing instructions to guide these platforms to give you your desired output. And it's basically a way of translating your human need into a language that AI can understand and be able to respond to effectively. Think about it as you driving a very powerful car. You are giving the car the instructions by steering. So prompt engineering is the steering of AI to the desired result. And it acts as a bridge between humans and AI because by you giving by you actually working with it, you are giving it clear and precise instructions so that it gives you the output that you are looking for. And doing this successfully is both an art and a science because it combines clear communication. You need to be able to articulate your need and still understand the science behind the platform itself and what are the reasonable limits that these platforms are operating under because it's very powerful but doesn't do everything. So why is it important for you to actually understand how to craft these questions? It's because the quality of output that you get out of AI is directly proportional to the quality of the input that you give it in terms of the prompt. If you give it a prompt, it will give you accurate, relevant, and very useful content. While if you don't give it well-structured prompts, it actually to lead to a lot of false information and what we call hallucination. So the thing you need to remember is that these tools are not mind readers. Yes, they have a lot of data that because they've consumed, they can identify patterns that you haven't thought of, but they still can't read your mind. So you need to give it very clear prompts to understand in order for it to understand what your intent is. And especially if you're in the work environment or if you're using AI within business, using proper prompts is non-negotiable. You need to actually learn how to actually give these instructions in a way that's going to give you the best results possible while not coming up with its own false data. So what are the common pitfalls we've seen whenever someone is putting or utilizing these platforms? The first is giving, as we mentioned, ambiguous instructions. So your goals are unclear, what you're trying to achieve is unclear, and this is going to lead to generic or very false information. The best way to resolve this is to actually give specific context, what is the desired format, and even guide it, give it more information in terms of length and tone of what you want the output to be. So a good example of this is the question, what are the 3 actionable ways to increase monthly revenue for a bootstrapped real estate firm? If you look at that one query, there are several critical pieces of information that have been given. One, we have the actionable ways, the 3 actionable ways, which is the output that you are actually asking for. What is it that you want? You want to the goal you're trying to resolve is how to increase monthly revenue. And then you've also given it the context that it's a real estate farm that is currently being bootstrapped. So that massively changes the output that you're going to get. The other problem we see is actually the complete opposite of this, which is where you give it overly complex instructions, and especially if you give it as a block of a wall of text. We are trying to put everything inside that text, and what's going to happen is a phenomenon called lost in the middle, which is where AI is going to just focus on the very top of the content that you've given it and then the very bottom. And then it's going to actually not understand the middle as much as it could have. So another trick that you may want to do is put the very important information at the bottom and at the top and the bottom of the content that you're giving it. But the best solution is to actually break it down into smaller, more focused prompts, as opposed to giving it like one huge wall. Give it more dense out pieces of prompts so that it's able to work it through and give you better results. The other thing that we've seen is giving it a lack of perspective. So you give it the prompt, but you haven't told it to take up a particular role. So, for example, if you're giving it a financial report and you want feedback about the report, you can actually tell it to take a particular role. So, working as a financial analyst, give me what are the results that you're seeing from these reports. That massively changes the quality that you're going to get out of that feedback. Now, what are the core principles to think about when you're creating effective prompts? Some of them we've already covered. So you want to be very clear and specific, be detail oriented, like give it contexts. What is the desired format you want it to come out as? What length, what tone do you want it to give? The more precise the information you give it, the more relevant the output is going to be. The second thing we want you to do is like experiment, like test different prompts, lengths, test different ways to interact with the platform and see what are the best results, what gives you the best results. Because based on the context that you have, there is no one size fit all. So we can just give you the structure, but you need to do a lot of experimentation. Another thing is talk to it naturally. Talk to it as if you're talking to a human. Think of it as a very powerful and very well learned intern. Just talk to it naturally because the data it has been trained on is actually based off human interaction. And then again, this I cannot emphasize this enough. Give it a clear role for it to play. This is going to massively change the feedback you're going to be getting. Then the more data you can give it in terms of contexts is going to make a very huge difference in terms of the result you're going to get. If possible, give it sources for it to go and get more information from. And you're going to see where this is going to play a huge role in terms of the answers that you're going to get. And then the other thing you want to go is have an iterative approach as you're going through the prompt engineering. So you refine your question based on the answers that you're getting. And again, remember, the first prompt will rarely give you the perfect result. You need to go iterating it as you interact with the platform. So there are a few more advanced prompting techniques, which we don't need to cover right now, but I'll just quickly mention them. We have the short prompting, which is where you're either giving it an example. So zero shot is where you're just giving it a direct instruction without giving it any example for it to rely on. And this one, in this case, you're actually relying on the data it has already been given. So one-shot prompting is where you're giving a specific example within the prompt. So let's say, for example, you have some data of um, the financial data from a particular report, and you have the report that has come out. So you can actually tell it, analyzing this data, I want to give me a result similar to what I have in this particular PDF. So now you're giving it context for it to contextualize itself to. Then few shot prompting, which is basically giving it more and more examples in order for it to learn what you're trying to actually achieve. And this will actually give you more accurate data than if you just let it work with the data it had uh, based based on the data that it was trained on, right? Then you have something called the chain of thought. This is where you are breaking down the problem solving into particular steps, intermediate steps, which helps one improve the transparency because you're able to see how it's going about process by process, and you can even see where it takes a wrong turn and maybe tell it to make a change there. Tree of thought is something where you're seeing multiple parallels of how it it uh it came about the answer, or like how it can come about the answer, and you're able to actually choose which ones you want to have it rely on or have it use, so that you can also backtrack and see where the problem in terms of the final result came in. Then the other thing that is very critical is actually retrieval augmented generation. And this is where you're giving it specific data for it to work with. So you're telling it, I want you to give me feedback, but I want all your answers to come from this particular report, as opposed to having it use the internet or having it just use the data that it was trained on. And what this does, it gives you far less hallucination. And like we mentioned, hallucination is where it's coming up with its own facts, coming up with its own data. This drastically reduces that because it's going to be based off contextual data that is very domain specific. So again, those are more advanced versions, which I'll cover in the future. But something I want to emphasize on is, again, just think about the structure of your prompts. Every time you're about to utilize these platforms, just think about the RTCE prompting structure. What we mean by this is, number one, define the role. Remember what we said, give it a particular role for it to play. So as a journalist, as a financial analyst, as a world-class travel consultant, give it a particular role for it to take up. Then specify the objective. What are you trying to achieve? So in this case, you can say something like describe steps to improve my blog posts retention if you are in the marketing field. Then give it context, provide relevant background that gives the platform a more wholesome understanding of what you're trying to go for. So based on user testing feedback, this is what we've had in the last quarter. So use that to improve my blog, right? And then give the expectation of what you want the result to look like. How do you want the desired output to be? In this case, you can use something like provide a detailed plan, right? Now, let's do a quick top of mind example of how we can use this. Let's say you're about to travel somewhere and you have your family, but you also be doing some business and you want to know what activities you can do or how you can keep yourselves entertained while still achieving some work, right? On one hand, you can give it a very general prompt, something like, I'm traveling, tell me how I can best enjoy myself and with my family, right? But in order for you to get the best results, you want to first define a particular role. So you can say something like working as a world-class travel consultant who has a full understanding of this particular country. That's the role you've defined it. Specify the objective. Give me a detailed day-to-day work plan plus itinerary for me and my family during this particular stay, right? We'll be staying from this date to this date and then give it the context. So what exactly is happening? I have my family. I have a family of three. So if there's a child involved, you also want to include that in the prompt itself. I'm trying to achieve both work and pleasure. I want to see what are the main tourist sites, but what are other hidden sites that not many people know about that the locals actually enjoy. And I want this in a day-to-day breakdown, which is now the expectation. How do you want that to look like? Give me a day-to-day breakdown of activities marking the key locations that you can actually go and visit. That's a very well planned out prompt, and the results you're going to get are going to be very different from if you just give it a very generic prompt, right? Now, if you're doing it to create content, you can actually add on a few other structural items. You can talk about the tone and style. So, do you want like a formal email? Do you want a comedic script? That will also help guide the AI. Talk about the structure. So, how do you want it? Do you want it in paragraph form? Do you want it as a dialogue between people? Do you want it to be broken down into like, very simple like steps? And then the essence, you can actually even tell it, so what is the focus of the main message? So even looking at the example above, you can say we want to have fun, but we want to emphasize on family bonding. That alone completely again changes the prompt and how the output you're going to get from it. So we've covered a lot, and I hope that has helped to some extent. The thing about prompt engineering is it's a very new role, but it's very massively becoming a very critical part. And the more you understand how to do prompt engineering and the better your prompts can be, the faster you'll be able to achieve what you're trying to achieve with all these platforms. And as a closing step, the thing you need to remember is this is a craft and it's something that you can improve on. And with the current situation of the world, it's a skill that you need to have. You cannot not have it. And the best thing about it is it's actually a continuous learning process. You can iterate and improve on what you had in the past. You can save your best prompts. And the best thing about it is you can actually use these platforms to also give you the best prompts to help you get better at it. But the other thing you need to remember is again, always prioritize on ethics. Consider what are the ethical implications, what you're getting out of it. Try to ensure the outputs are unbiased and that they are accurate and that it's information that also respect the privacy. So this goes without saying, do not give AI very information that you do not want to also become, public in case of a leak or you do not want the AI company to have because whatever information you utilize or whatever information you give AI is actually accessible to the team that is behind the AI platform. So with that, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.